What I'd like to do is sort of put a little bit of this in context. And the first thing I think we ought to talk about a little bit is what is energy security? So we tend to think about energy security as a concentration of low-cost reserves in unstable parts of the world, which tend to provide two risks to the U.S. One, they can restrict output and charge higher prices that would prevail in more competitive environments. And two, right, some of these guys could go out of business with war, terrorism, even embargoes. Also imposing price spike and large costs on the national economy. So one of the best ways to deal with this threat or this problem is to have a production platform in a stable part of the world, which turns out to be North America. And if you look at what's happened here in this slide, you can see that if you take the U.S. and Canada together, which Congressman Barton just spoke about, we have had a remarkable increase in production. And it's very important to look upon this through a North American lens, because it is this North American lens that is so stable. Right? And it is this rapid run-up in production, particularly if you include natural gas liquids, that has made a remarkable change. Next slide. Now, you can see prices have come down, but I don't think we quite understand what this means. The reduction in price, and I've testified here many times where members have said, well, you know, we know, Mr. Pugliaresi, if we open up ANWR, if we do X or Y, we'll get more production, but OPEC will just cut production, the price won't come down. Well, the price has come down, and this price decrease is an enormous benefit to the world economy. The world consuming centers are going to get a savings of approximately $1.3 trillion next year if these prices persist. The American driver, who spends about $3,000 a year in gasoline, is going to get an $800 savings. This is an enormous boom in benefit to the national economy, to the world economy, and it's being delivered to us through these production gains we're having in this stable North American platform. And we want to preserve that platform, right? We want to make the distribution of crude oil efficient. That's why we need Keystone. We want to have good regulations. We want to open up the federal lands a lot more. You know, all this production we have seen has come from federal lands. Next slide. This shows you the permit activity for oil and gas drilling permits just for 90 days prior to the December 1st, 2014. Of course, we're a little concerned that these lower oil prices, and we're getting some evidence that the permit activity is coming off. And I think that is a good reason to have this hearing. We need to look at our whole regulatory structure and see, okay, what do we need to do to make it as efficient as possible? Because once again, we want this platform, the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream, we want it to perform as best as possible. And you know, we are concerned about this, but I must say we met with some of the world's best extraction technologists in Houston the last couple of days. There's a lot of exciting things going on out there. As long as we have an open system, I think we're going to find ways to drive down these extraction costs. I mean, there's very interesting things happening out there. Next slide. This is our estimate of in a sort of $80 environment of what we think the U.S. could do, at least in the near term, by API gravity. You see we're producing a lot of light sweet crude, and we're not sure how much this is going to be disturbed by these lower oil price environment. We're probably going to see some reduction there, but you know, the outlook is still very positive. Next slide. I want to leave you with just a couple of things here. One, if you look at this slide, it's quite interesting. Traditionally, conventional oil had a very modest decline rate, maybe 5%, and a pretty high recovery factor, as much as 50%. What I don't think we understand is that even though we have this very high decline rate in these unconventional resources we have now, we have to keep drilling, our recovery factor is quite small. Small improvements in this recovery factor are going to make a big difference. That's why we want to see this technology continue to progress. And you know, if you look at this whole North American success story, we get back to EPCA, keep in mind that we should have a lot of humility about how we proceed. We had mandates on ethanol. We had 6 months oil embargo, and then we had 10 years of price controls. We had a Fuel Use Act, which prevented the use of natural gas. So as we go forward, I think one of the things I want the members to think about is, what are the benefits of an open system? You know, Wallace Pratt, the famous geologist, said in the 30s, oil is first discovered in the mind of man. And I think that we want to keep that intellectual capacity going here in the U.S. Thank you, Mr. Chair.